So yeah, to calculate it, the price elasticity of demand is percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. So in this case, when the price of four-star hotel rooms rose from $160 to $180, demand fell from 3,200 to 2,800 rooms per week, calculated elasticity of demand. So you have to do so in this case, you can do the midpoint method or the percentage method. I recommend the midpoint method. So in this case, the midpoint method is you take the change in rooms divided by midpoint of rooms, and then divide that by change in price divided by midpoint of price. So that's the best way to calculate it here. So I'll show you. This is how to get price elasticity of demand. So based on this, you have to take the 3,200 minus 2,800 and then divide that by the midpoint. So the midpoint of that is 3,000. So that'd be the midpoint of these here. You just have to find the middle. And then divide that by change in price, which is 180. So sorry, 160 minus 180. And then the midpoint between 160 and 180 is 170. So we have all that information now, and you just plug all that in. So that's how you can get price elasticity of demand. And then here it would be, so to get that, so I'll simplify it. So this would be 400 divided by 3,000, and then divided by -20 divided by 170. So could somebody try to calculate that for me? What's if you did this, what would it be? Yes, so yeah, about negative, yeah, exactly. So negative 1.13. So that shows that the good is elastic. So that means that it isn't a necessity. So yeah, it's elastic, it isn't a necessity. So that's how you do that. So I'm gonna put this in the chat for everyone so you have it. But that's how you would calculate price elasticity. I recommend using the midpoint method. So use the midpoint method. So change in quantity divided by midpoint of quantity, and then divided by change in price divided by midpoint of price equals price elasticity of demand. So if price goes up by 10%, then demand goes down by 10%. If price goes up by 10%, then demand goes down by 10%. So that's really what would happen, close to what would happen there. So in actually it would be a little bit different. So since we got negative, so we got negative 1.1 roughly. If price goes up by 10%, quantity demanded goes down by 11.36% roughly. Yeah, so quantity demanded would go down by 11.36%. So the quantity demanded would go down by a greater amount than the price rise in that case. So I'll screenshot that too. So our number was more accurate than theirs because they did the percentage method. I recommend use my method, use the midpoint method. So always use my method. So always use the method I just showed. So use the midpoint method. It's more accurate. Yeah, so I recommend you always use the midpoint method. So in this case, if price goes up by 10%, demand quantity demanded goes down by less than 10%. An example would be gas for your car. So if the quantity demanded goes down by a smaller percentage than the price increase, then it's a need because you're still going to buy a lot of it. It will not decrease as much as the price increased. Yeah. While if the price goes up by 10% and the quantity demanded goes down by more than 10%, that's a want. So something that you don't need. So restaurant dining would be like that. So the price goes up by 10% and then the quantity demanded goes down by more than 10%. So that'd be restaurant dining. So factors that affect price elasticity, factors affecting price elasticity of demand or necessity of good or service. Necessities generally have lower elasticity than luxuries. Number of substitutes, fewer substitutes means lower elasticity. Can't shop elsewhere. Addictiveness, the more addictive a good, the lower elasticity. Factors that affect price elasticity continued. Factors affecting price elasticity of demand continued. Price and usefulness. Cheap and useful goods are generally less elastic. Price increases on cheap good have little impact on purchasing power. Time period, the longer the time is allowed to lapse. Elasticity typically increases. Holidays booked far in advance, so price increases don't affect demand for a while. Customer awareness, price of goods included as part of holiday packages may not be known by consumers and therefore may be elastic. So price elasticity is how much quantity demand is affected by price changes. Percentage change in quantity demand is by percentage change in price. I recommend using the midpoint method. In elastic products, quantity demand does not change much relative to price changes. Price elasticity value is greater than 0, but less than 1. So it'd be like if price goes up by 10%, the quantity demanded will go down by less than 10%. Elastic products, quantity demanded changes more relative to price changes. Price elasticity value is greater than 1, and the higher the value, the more demand is affected by price. So in that case, if price goes up by 10%, the quantity demanded would fall by more than 10%. Factors that affect demand, necessity, number of substitutes, addictiveness, quantity sold. If a change in quantity sold is greater than a change in price, demand is elastic and has greater effects on revenue. Elastic demand, rise in price by 10% results in a quantity sold demand falling by more than 10%, means that total revenue will fall. Inelastic demand, rise in price by 10% results in quantity sold demand falling by less than 10%, means total revenue will rise. Important to try to forecast demand to anticipate impact on future revenue. Total revenue, let's do the math. So elastic demand, if the price goes up by 10%, the quantity sold will go down by more than 10%. And then in elastic demand, if the price goes up by 10%, the quantity sold will go down by less than 10%. So as you can see here, for elastic demand, if the price goes up by 10%, quantity sold will go down by 20%. And then for inelastic demand, if the price goes up by 10%, quantity sold will go down by 5%. So as you can see, that's usually what happens. So I'll ask the class, what goods can you think of are elastic goods? I would say clothing is kind of a need, so I'd say it's inelastic. So elastic goods are not needs. So elastic goods are more wants. So I would say, yeah, elastic good would be the like luxury vehicles. Yeah, luxury goods, yeah. So anything that you don't need, so like lobster, vacations, that kind of stuff, that would be elastic goods. Yeah. Travel, yeah, exactly. Travel would be under that umbrella. That's excellent. And then, yeah, so any other examples you can think of what elastic goods are? I would say coffee's inelastic because you kind of need it to get up in the morning. Gadgets are elastic for sure. Yeah, I'd agree gadgets are. Yeah, soda, I'd say that's elastic because it's not needed. Gas is inelastic because we need it to travel. Automobiles can be inelastic if that's our only source of travel. I would say that they're inelastic for a lot of people. Concert tickets are elastic. Yeah, that's great. Movies are elastic. Soft drinks are elastic. Yes. Yes. Jewelry is elastic. Yes. So I'll ask, what are some examples of inelastic goods? Food, yes. We need food to survive, so it'd be inelastic. Water, yes. We need food. We need water to survive, so it's inelastic. Yes. Electricity, yes, we need electricity to survive, really. So it's inelastic. Medicines, yes, we need medicines to survive. So it's inelastic. Yes. Pharmaceuticals, yes, it's inelastic. We need it to survive. Yeah. Also, goods we're addicted to would fall under inelastic because we may not need them, but we're addicted to them. So like cigarettes, alcohol, those types of things can would be inelastic because of the addiction factor. So addiction can fall into that too. Education, yes. Education be inelastic because we need it. Toiletries, yes, we need those. So that's inelastic. But yeah, also addiction would fall into that. Money, yes, money would be inelastic because we need it to pay for things. That's true. Clothes are inelastic, yes. So clothes in general are inelastic because we all need clothes to wear for life, but individual clothing brands like Nike, that's elastic because we can just switch to another clothing brand. So if it's an individual clothing brand, we can just switch. So it's elastic. Yeah. So anything that's a brand would be elastic because there's a lot of substitutes. So anything with a lot of substitutes, we can is elastic. Anything with no subs anything with very few substitutes is inelastic. So there's no real substitute for clothes in general. Transportation like buses and train, yeah, that would be inelastic. Yeah, good points, everyone. Great job. So cross price elasticity of demand. Cross price elasticity of demand measures the relationship between different goods and services. So alcohol, yeah, alcohol would be inelastic, yeah. So cross price elasticity of demand. Cross price elasticity of demand measures the relationship between different goods and services. Calculation percentage change in quantity demanded product A divided by percentage change in price of product B. It reveals whether goods are substitutes. An increase in price of product A leads to an increase in demand for product B. Cross price elasticity is positive. Plus, complements an increase in the price of product A leads to a decrease in demand for product B. Cross price elasticity is negative. Unrelated, an increase in price of product A has no effect on demand of product B. Cross price elasticity is zero. So price elasticity affects total revenue. Elastic products rise in price results in a decrease in total revenue. Inelastic products rise in price results to an increase in total revenue. Cross price elasticity substitutes complements unrelated. And we'll get to the next thing. So I'm going to cover explore changes to demand, predict whether this will cause demand to increase or decrease, then predict whether this change is likely to cause price to increase or decrease. We'll read a scenario, we'll answer 3 questions, then we'll have an explanation before moving on to the next scenario. So scenario 1, the United States government had a law that increased unemployment payments by $600. This law expires, ending the benefit. What will likely happen to aggregate demand? So what determinative demand is this? So consumer income.
Tama.
So what will most likely happen to aggregate demand with the payment that was given?
Increase pala, sorry.
So demand will decrease. I think that answer is wrong. It should increase. Part of that. So what will that change demand lead to? Mhm. So surplus. So what will likely happen to the price of all goods and services as a result? So price will decrease. So explanation of the scenario, we can expect consumer income to decrease because unemployment benefits have decreased. So less income means consumers will have less money to spend, which will decrease demand. We can then predict that a decrease in demand will almost always lead to a decrease in price. So scenario 2, the number of many people living in Melvindale increases. What is this likely to do for demand for Middle Eastern food in the area? Which determinant of demand best describes the scenario? There are two possible correct answers. Mhm. So it'd be number of consumers and consumer tastes because they like that type of food and there's more consumers. So their tastes are focused on that food because they like the food, and there's more consumers also. So what will most likely happen to the demand for Middle Eastern food? So demand will increase because they want to buy more of that food. So what will that change in demand lead to? Mhm. So shortage, yes. So what will likely happen to the price of Middle Eastern food as a result of the change in demand? Price will increase. Explanation, this is a change in consumer tastes. If you said number of consumers, that is okay too. But there is also a new population that probably has different food preferences than the existing population. It stands to reason that new restaurants would open to serve that population. So in the last week of the month of June, your grocery store has a sale on hot dogs and hot dog buns. What will this likely do to demand for hot dog toppings, ketchup, mustard, onions, chili? So which determinative demand best describes this scenario? So complements. It's called complements. So if you buy something that you use with something else, they're complements. So you'll buy both of them. You'll buy them together because they're complements. So can you think of any other examples of that? So can you think of anything you buy together? So toothbrush and toothpaste, exactly. So those are complements. You got to buy both. You can't just buy a toothbrush. You can't just buy toothpaste. You need both for it to work. So that's a complement. So complements are bought slash used together. Coffee and donut, exactly. Yeah. So if the price of one complement goes up, people buy less of them together because they usually buy both together. Printer and ink, yeah. So if the price of a printer goes up, ink and printer sales will go down. So if the price of coffee goes up, quantity demanded of coffee and donuts go down. And then if the price of toothpaste goes up, quantity demanded of toothpaste and toothbrushes go down. So they're usually bought together. That's complements. So good job. So what will most likely happen to demand for hot dog toppings? So demand will increase for hot dog toppings. So what will most likely happen to the price of hot dog toppings as a result of this change in demand? So it's going to be price will increase. Explanation. This is a scenario about compliments. Compliments are goods and services that are usually consumed together. In this case, because there is a sale on hot dogs and hot dog buns, we can conclude that quantity demanded of those will increase. A sale means the price is lower. That will in turn likely lead to an increase in demand for things like mustard. In theory, this would also lead to an increase in the price of toppings. However, because this is short-term change, probably wouldn't see any real change in price for toppings. So a Wendy's and McDonald's are located across the street from each other. The Wendy's offers a sale, buy one, get one free on chicken nuggets. What will this likely do to the demand for chicken nuggets at McDonald's? So which determinant of demand best describes the scenario? So substitutes. So yeah, if you switch from one to another, if you switch from McDonald's to Wendy's because Wendy's is cheaper, they're substitutes. So a lot of time it happens, what happens is that you switch from one to another because one's cheaper now. And they're basically the same product, almost the same product. So switching one for the other, it's pretty much a substitute for each. So if one gets more expensive, you go to the other one.
Wala.
So which will most likely happen to demand for McDonald's chicken nuggets? So demand will decrease. Yes. Good job. So what will likely happen to the price of McDonald's chicken nuggets as a result of this change in demand? So price will decrease. Explanation: chicken nuggets from competing fast food restaurants or substitute goods. If the price of chicken nuggets at Wendy's decreases, we can predict that the quantity demanded of these nuggets would increase. In turn, this will result in a decrease in demand for chicken nuggets. From McDonald's, because people are going to Wendy's, McDonald's will likely have to respond with the sales. Supply, it measures the responsiveness of supply to change in price. Definition: percentage change in quantity supply divided by percentage change in price. I recommend using the midpoint method. So it's the same calculation as the demand. So yeah, use the midpoint method. It's the same as demand. It's really no different. Inelastic is when supply cannot easily be changed. Elastic supply is more flexible. So factors affecting price elasticity of supply: time period. Generally, the longer the time period allowed, the easier it is for supply to be changed. Supply relatively inelastic in short term. Fixed factors of production can be changed in longer term, so more elastic. Availability of stocks. Availability of stock for manufactured goods enables supply to be more flexible, more elastic. For businesses such as theaters and hotels, it's impossible to keep standby stocks, so supply is inelastic in the short run. Factors continued. Factors affecting price elasticity of supply continued. Spare capacity. Having spare capacity will make supply more elastic, i.e., airlines that have spare aircraft available for deployment. Flexibility of capacity, such as resource mobility. Resources can be easily shifted, reallocated from one good service to another. Flexibility of sport arenas. Capacity shift from one leisure service to another based on changes in demand, more elastic. Flexibility of labor. Have employees be multi-skilled, shift from one task to another. Changing supply of specialized goods such services less flexible and elastic, requires special skilled labor such machines, i.e. training for pilots that can make supply of air travel inelastic in short term. Lesson summary: price elasticity. How much quantity supplied is affected by price changes. Use the midpoint method for calculating it. Inelastic products, quantity supply doesn't change much relative to price changes. Price elasticity value is greater than 0, but less than 1. Elastic products, quantity supply changes more relative to price changes. Price elasticity value is greater than 1, and the higher the value, the more supply is affected by price. Factors that affect supply: time period, availability of stock, availability of spare capacity, flexibility of capacity, and resources. So what is price elasticity of supply? So a measure of the responsiveness of quantity supplied to changes in price. What is the formula for price elasticity of supply? Percentage change in quantity supplied for a good or service divided by percentage change of the price of the product. Price goes from 50 TL to 90 TL, forcing supply to increase from 60 units to 100 units. What is the price elasticity of supply? Try your best, and then I'll show you how to do it after this question. 4 here. So what I'll do is I'm going to show. So you take the 100 units. So you take the 60 minus 100, then the midpoint between those two numbers, which is 80, and then divide that by, so that would all be a 1 here, and then divide that by so 50 minus 90 divided by the midpoint of those numbers, so 50 and 90 is 70. So you do that, and then we'd have 40, negative 40 here divided by 80, and then we'd have negative 40 divided by 70. Yeah. So we'd have that. So it'd be about, yeah, so that's what we would have. And then, yeah, so then we go from there and figure it out. So just gonna calculate that quick. So it'd be about 0.875 roughly. So it's a bit higher than what they got, but this way, the way that I did is more accurate. They quoted in positive numbers just because people like positive numbers better. That's why they put it in positives, but it's actually negative. But yeah, people just like positive numbers better. So that's how you calculate it. And it should be negative 0.875, not 0.84. They some of the units are off a bit, so that's how you do that. So let's do the next one here. So I put in the chat the solution for this. So use that to do this one. Supply rises from 10 to 20, following a rise in price from 10 to 50. What is price elasticity of supply? So just use what I did for the last question, and that's the best guide. So 0.25. So pause this. So try to pause it. I'll bring it back in at the end. So what does elasticity? What elasticity does this graph indicate? So elastic, yes. What is price elasticity of supply in this example? So whoever said it falls by 20% is actually right. This answer is incorrect. It should fall by 20%. So they should, so since the price of the good falls by 10%, they're going to produce 20% less because they're going to get less money for selling it, so they're going to produce less of it. So if the price of the good falls by 10%, the quantity supplied will fall by 20%. So they move in the same direction. So if the price of the good then falls by 10%, with the price elasticity of supply of 2, the quantity supplied will fall by 20% because they're going to make less money on the product. Then what are the determinants of price elasticity of supply? The degree to which costs rise in response to changes in output, the degree of mobility of the necessary factors for production, the level of unused capacity in the production unit, and the ability of the business to store stock or other raw materials. What do we call this? The price inelastic because it's pretty steep. That's why. If it's the steeper, the more inelastic it is. So good job, Suja, Apple, Shay, and then I'll name off everyone else. So great job, Homestuck, Mishani, Vivian, Faye, Nuzhat, Carmela, Isha, May, Bernal, Jenilyn, Q, Viraj, June, Ramal, and Vio. Excellent work. I'm just gonna go through. I'll get back to the question that we covered there, and I'll go through how it was calculated here. So the question was this here. Supply rises from 10 to 20, following a rise in price from 10 to 20, 10 to 50 TL. What's price elasticity of supply? So to do that, you would take the 10 minus 20 and get the midpoint, which is 15. And then divide that by 10 minus 50, and the midpoint between 10 and 50, which is 30. We get that. And then the top would be negative 10. Bottom 15 divided by negative 40 divided by 30. That's how you do that. And then price elasticity of supply is negative 0.67 divided by negative 1.33. And then to get that, that would be about, I'll calculate that. So it would be about negative, it would be about 0.50 roughly. In that case. But you can get a different amount, you can get a different answer if you do the percentage way. This would be a more accurate response with the midpoint method here. Right here. But let's try the percentage method. So the percentage method we do, so in that case, 10 so 20 minus 10 divided by 10 for the quantity, and then divide that by 50 minus 10 divided by 10, 10 divided by 10 divided by 40 divided by 10, 1 divided by 4 equals 0.25. So that would be if you did the percentage way. So it'd be 0.25 and price elasticity of supply in this case. Yeah, so you get a different answer if you did the midpoint or the percentage method here. Yeah, so both